Carlos Lehder's name is etched into the annals of the cocaine trade, a man whose audacity, ambition, and brilliance created an empire that spanned continents. From the streets of Colombia to the sunlit shores of Norman's Cay, Lehder's life was a thrilling saga of power, violence, and obsession. His story begins not as a kingpin but as a young man fueled by rebellion, privilege, and a desire to dominate a world most could only dream of. Behind the glamour and danger was a calculated mind, one that would soon reshape the very landscape of international drug trafficking. His rise was meteoric, but every empire has its cracks, and Lehder's would prove fatal. Long before he became a notorious kingpin, Lehder's early life in Colombia was marked by contrasts, wealth and rebellion, privilege and danger. His German-Colombian heritage gave him access to resources, yet his restless spirit drew him toward a darker world. He cultivated connections, honed his street smarts, and learned the art of influence, combining intelligence with audacity. These formative years laid the foundation for a man who would later transform cocaine smuggling into a highly organized empire. It was not just ambition, it was vision, risk, and an unquenchable hunger for control that propelled Lehder forward. As the shadows of adolescence gave way to adulthood, Lehder's eyes were set on opportunity. The streets of Colombia were filled with rival factions, small-time dealers, and whispered promises of wealth and power. Lehder recognized that true dominance required more than brute force, it demanded strategy, boldness, and an ability to foresee the moves of allies and enemies alike. It was this rare combination of intelligence and audacity that set him apart, making him both admired and feared. Little did the world know, a storm was gathering in the Caribbean, and Lehder was at its center, ready to orchestrate a criminal revolution that would leave a lasting mark on history. Young Lehder grew up in a world of contrasts, luxury cars, sprawling mansions, and the strict discipline of his family intertwined with a fascination for risk and rebellion. By his teenage years, he was already drawn to the underworld, experimenting with small criminal ventures, learning to navigate the shadowy corridors of power. He observed the patterns of the wealthy, the corrupt, and the ambitious, internalizing lessons that would later define his empire. Lehder's charm and audacity allowed him to blend into multiple worlds, from elite parties to clandestine operations, creating a persona both enigmatic and dangerous. The streets of Colombia offered lessons no school could teach. Lehder's intelligence and curiosity became tools for manipulation and survival. He learned to negotiate, intimidate, and inspire loyalty, combining psychological insight with calculated risk. It was during these formative years that Lehder's ambitions shifted from small schemes to audacious dreams of dominance. He envisioned a world where cocaine was more than a commodity, it was a pathway to wealth, influence, and legend. Each small success emboldened him, each close call sharpened his instincts. By the time Lehder reached adulthood, he was already preparing for a life of unprecedented risk. His early ventures in drug distribution were stepping stones, opportunities to test his strategies and refine his operations. He studied the routes, the buyers, and the law enforcement patterns, thinking several steps ahead. Even at this stage, Lehder's life was defined by duality, brilliance and recklessness, charm and menace, ambition and vulnerability. The foundation for an empire was being laid, one that would soon challenge governments, rival cartels, and the limits of human audacity. Lehder's entry into the cocaine trade was bold and calculated. Recognizing the explosive demand in the United States, he leveraged connections, charisma, and intelligence to establish smuggling networks. Unlike others, Lehder envisioned not just a role but domination, control over routes, operations, and distribution. He introduced innovation, using small planes, isolated airstrips, and clandestine logistics to bypass authorities. This early phase was marked by audacity and ingenuity, setting Lehder apart as a visionary in the criminal underworld. His strategic mind was evident in the purchase and transformation of Norman's Cay into a fortified smuggling hub. With radar systems, armed guards, and a private runway, Lehder converted the island into an operational fortress, centralizing shipments to Florida with near immunity. The move was both ingenious and reckless, drawing attention yet creating a monopoly few could rival. His vision combined logistics, security, and psychological dominance, making him untouchable, at least for a time. Lehder's operations were defined by precision and terror. Loyalty was enforced through intimidation, betrayal met with brutal punishment, and fear became currency. Associates worked under extreme discipline, knowing failure could be fatal. Simultaneously, Lehder's flamboyance and charisma inspired devotion, creating an empire where power and myth intertwined. It was an era of rapid expansion, where audacity was rewarded, and the stakes could not have been higher. Lehder's genius was amplified by his alliance with the Medellín Cartel. By joining forces with Colombia's most powerful criminal organization, he gained access to influence, protection, and established networks. Unlike others, Lehder sought more than partnership, he sought control, blending innovation with strategic vision. This alliance allowed him to expand operations while maintaining independence, a delicate balance that few could achieve. Within the cartel, Lehder's reputation grew rapidly. His strategies for logistics, security, and market control were unprecedented. Planes, covert airstrips, and coded communications ensured efficiency, while fear maintained loyalty. Lehder was a strategist, a tactician, and a provocateur, elevating the cartel's operations to new heights. His methods were ruthless, yet brilliant, earning both admiration and wariness from his peers. However, his ambition and flamboyance also sowed seeds of tension. Public statements glorifying violence and cocaine drew attention from authorities and rivals. Within the cartel, whispers of resentment began. Lehder's independence, previously a strength, now became a liability. His empire was growing, but so were the dangers lurking behind every alliance, every operation, and every ambitious act. Norman's Cay represented the pinnacle of Lehder's empire. The tiny Bahamian island became a fortress, a hub for smuggling, and a symbol of audacity. From here, cocaine flowed to the United States with terrifying efficiency. Armed guards, radar systems, and fortified airstrips created a near-impenetrable operation. Lehder's vision and intelligence transformed a small island into a kingdom of crime, showcasing both brilliance and danger. His empire generated immense wealth, funding lavish lifestyles and militarized operations. Each flight, each shipment, was meticulously planned, reflecting Lehder's genius. Allies operated under fear and loyalty, rivals watched with envy, and authorities scrambled to understand the scale of his operations. Norman's Cay was a monument to ambition, audacity, and the dangerous allure of power. Yet, Lehder's visibility and flamboyance created vulnerability. While his methods were efficient, they drew attention. Competitors, authorities, and insiders began noticing patterns. The very audacity that enabled dominance now exposed risks, foreshadowing the coming storm. Lehder's empire had reached heights few could imagine, but its collapse was closer than he realized. Lehder's empire attracted both envy and hatred. Rival factions within the Medellín Cartel began seeing him as a threat, while authorities intensified surveillance. Alliances were fragile, and whispers of betrayal became louder. The balance of power, previously tilted in Lehder's favor, began to shift under pressure from both rivals and law enforcement. Betrayal came from inside his own network. Pilots, staff, and associates began cooperating with authorities, exposing critical operations. Every success Lehder had built through fear and strategy now became a potential liability. His brilliance could not counteract the human unpredictability threatening his empire. As internal and external pressures mounted, Lehder's empire wobbled. Violence escalated, reprisals increased, and tension became constant. Norman's Cay, once untouchable, now appeared vulnerable. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation that would define Lehder's legacy. The DEA moved decisively against Lehder, coordinating with Bahamian authorities. Norman's Cay, the symbol of his power, was under surveillance. Flights were tracked, shipments intercepted, and intelligence gathered. Lehder's meticulous empire faced unprecedented pressure, exposing cracks in the seemingly untouchable operation. Paranoia consumed Lehder. Security was increased, armed personnel reinforced, yet the empire's vulnerabilities were impossible to hide. Former allies turned informants, and every move was under scrutiny. The very ingenuity that had allowed Lehder to dominate now exposed him to capture. As the net tightened, Lehder's confidence wavered. Norman's Cay, his fortress and pride, was no longer safe. Law enforcement, combined with betrayal, was closing in, and the empire's collapse seemed inevitable. The final act was approaching, where ambition would confront consequence. Internal betrayal accelerated Lehder's downfall. Allies once loyal now feared the exposure his audacious persona brought. Within the cartel, whispers turned to conspiracies, and trust eroded rapidly. Lehder's independence, admired in the past, now made him a target. Rival factions moved against him, intercepting shipments and challenging authority. Violence escalated, but each retaliation only drew more attention from law enforcement. The very fear Lehder cultivated was now mirrored by enemies and authorities alike. Isolation became absolute. Norman's Cay, once a symbol of power, became a gilded cage. Lehder's brilliance could not counterbalance betrayal, rival ambition, and relentless investigation. His empire was crumbling, leaving the Kingpin exposed. The DEA executed a precise and ruthless operation. Norman's Cay, the heart of Lehder's empire, was infiltrated and dismantled. Informants and surveillance ensured every move was tracked. Lehder's empire, once a fortress, was stripped bare under tactical precision. Paranoia gave way to desperation. Armed guards and fortifications could not stop the inevitable. Allies abandoned him, coerced or fearful, leaving Lehder isolated. Every innovation that had built the empire now could not prevent its collapse. When captured, Lehder faced the full consequences of audacity. Norman's Cay, once a symbol of untouchable power, witnessed the fall of a kingpin. The world watched as brilliance, terror, and ambition collided with justice, leaving a legendary empire in ruins. Lehder's trial was a media spectacle. Evidence of vast cocaine shipments, financial records, and testimonies painted a damning picture. Despite his bravado, Lehder could not escape accountability. The courtroom showcased the contrast between his previous dominance and present vulnerability. Sentencing was harsh, multiple life terms ensured Lehder would never regain freedom. The empire he had built was dismantled, allies prosecuted or scattered, and Norman's Cay abandoned. Lehder's life became a cautionary tale of ambition, hubris, and consequence. Even in prison, Lehder remained a figure of fascination. His story shaped law enforcement strategies, inspired documentaries, and became a legend of criminal audacity. From kingpin to captive, Lehder's rise and fall captured the imagination of the world. Lehder's legacy endures as a paradox: genius and recklessness, power and vulnerability, audacity and downfall. His empire transformed cocaine smuggling but collapsed under betrayal and relentless law enforcement. Norman's Cay stands as a symbol of ambition, vision, and the impermanence of power. The lessons are clear: ambition without restraint, brilliance without caution, and audacity without foresight can bring both domination and ruin. Lehder's story continues to captivate, reminding us that even the boldest empires are temporary when faced with human frailty and justice. Carlos Lehder's life was a saga of ambition, crime, and consequence. What do you think? Was he a criminal genius or was his downfall inevitable? Comment below, share your thoughts, and subscribe to uncover more shocking stories of history's most notorious figures. Don't miss the next story.